Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled as to
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Hello, thank you for joining us this Sunday morning here on Global Television. I'm Uyi Agbonfuegbe. It's been a very eventful week for many reasons on different fronts for all of us. But then it's Sunday, and this is Global Morning. It's a special edition for you because first, it's compact. Second, it's not your typical weekday episode of the program. But the important thing is that we find it a delight knowing that you're joining us on the program this morning. Again, we say thank you to you. We also need to use this opportunity to salute the courage and the, if you like, tenacity, all right, and the resilience of Nigerians having to deal with these very trying times. You know, a political philosopher once said, these are times that test men's soul. Maybe he was particularly referring to this kind of experience that we're having in the country right now. Those who thought they were shielded from the challenges that the economy can pose are now also speaking up and expressing very sincere concerns about where we are as a country and where we could be heading if we do not do something very drastic and honest about the situation that we're dealing with in this country. On our parts, as a television station, as a broadcast medium, Global Television is poised and always ready to have conversations and help to put the facts in front of you. Of course, we also have a responsibility as part of the fourth estate of the realm to ensure that we continue to set agenda and keep an eye out for you on what government is doing to ensure that the life of the Nigerian becomes better. But this reality has also put a lot of pressure on those in government right now, particularly starting with leadership at the top, including the president. For example, this week we're seeing mixed reactions greeting the frequent travels of President Bola Tinubu. In fact, the peak of it would appear to be the reality that while the president was still in France as part of his, of course, 2-week vacation, Vice President Kashim Shettima, whom had been thought to be holding fort for President Tinubu, also was jetted out on the directive of his principal, President Tinubu, to go to Sweden to attend a conference there for 2 days, where we are told that he's been able to attract, some strategic investment partnership of some sort to Nigeria, one of them being the $14 million Ericsson hub, which we are told will be sited in this country for those who are within the tech space. But you see, as interesting and commendable as those may be, for the everyday Nigerian, there are issues that are more fundamental and far more basic than that. For example, cost of living is very much an issue for many Nigerians as it stands today. As a matter of fact, no matter how much of FDI, that is foreign direct investment, we attract into this country, until people have practical answers to the questions around food, shelter, and all of the basic amenity of life, I mean, nothing else matters. That's how sad it gets. But in the course of the 1-hour program this morning, we'll let you in on some of the things that government is also now coming up with by way of being innovative in the face of these very trying times that the country is grappling with. But that doesn't change the fact that we have newspapers for you this morning, which means that we will also take a look at big stories and just put the news right in front of you. All of that will come after this break. Do stay with us. Time now to return to the papers for you. Turns out we will begin with the Punch newspaper with the headlines just above the nameplates first for you. Okay, here it says multiple national grid collapses threaten ministers' 6,000 megawatts projection. The Minister of Power, Chief Adelabu, had promised some 6,000 megawatts of power. But then, with all of these several collapses, 3 national grid collapses in 1 week, 2, yes, that's the first 2, within a 24-hour space. Yes, it's not the first time the grid would collapse, of course. Nigerians probably, very sadly so, have become accustomed to frequent collapses of the grid. But the more important thing is the implication this has for the country. Total blackouts, all right? It's very sickening. It made news in Cuba just this weekend that there was blackouts across the country because they also had a collapse of their of their kind. But then, in the case of Cuba, people say, well, it's news because it's not something they are used to, all right? Conversely, back at home, it's almost like second nature. So while on the one hand, we are very concerned, sincerely so, about the fact that our grid continues to collapse at every turn, the embarrassment that comes with it, words are not just enough to describe it. Because, yes, we can argue and say every time the grid collapses, it has serious ramifications for households, for businesses, and even for development. No country, at least in this day and age, would grow, develop, and stretch itself, all right, or even innovate without power. But we also need to look at what it does to our image as a country, that we continue to discuss, talk about, get worried about grid collapse as a country, when other nations are talking about moving away from all of these hydro power kind of system, all right, adopting energy mix of some kind, making substantial investments in this sector, understanding what the climate is like at this point, issues around, the global warming. And now we're discussing issues around climate across the world, and nations are putting on the table proposals as to what they want to do short-term, long-term, and medium-term. But we don't seem to be ready for that conversation at all. Backtrack to 2010, for example, there was the World Cup in South Africa. And we do know what that country did at that point just to upscale its power output or capacity. In 2010, that was almost 1.5 decades ago. But 14 years after that World Cup in South Africa, Nigeria still can't boast a quarter of what South Africa produces in terms of power. And we make it look like it's impossible for us to do something about this. We make it look like, well, this is where we are, deal with it. We don't have any other option, no alternatives. Of course, we'll talk about alternatives in the course of the program this morning. But what it does mean is that if Nigeria as a country wants to be taken seriously in the Committee of Nations, we must first of all look inward and take ourselves seriously. Nobody takes you more seriously than you take yourself. A country that can boast of having steady power probably will find it extremely difficult. And that's natural, all right, to attract foreign direct investment. So when you bring Ericsson here, like we understand the vice president on behalf of the country has done in Sweden right now, what do you tell them about power, for example? Well, you say they are going to generate independent power. That's fine, but won't it be cheaper? Won't we gain or earn ourselves more respect if we already had the infrastructure in place? All right. Look at what the issue of power is doing to small businesses across this country, from small barbing salons to those who use power to do their businesses in one little corner of town or somewhere in the rural area. So until we tell ourselves the truth about what's happening in this all-important sector, until we find somebody who has sincerity of purpose and is ready to drive real-time innovation, all right, against all odds in this sector, Nigeria will continue to talk about 6,000 megawatts a day and 5,000 megawatts tomorrow. When Jonathan was president in this country, this is a man who left who left office about almost a decade ago. we're talking 3,000 megawatts today, 4,000 megawatts tomorrow. And then President Muhammadu Buhari came, spent 8 years at the point for the first 4 years of the life of former President Buhari's presidency. We had Fashola, former governor of Lagos State, as Minister of Power for 3.5 years. It was the same old story. So today is 3,600 megawatts. The day that follows, we say we're almost doing 4,500 megawatts. The day after that, we say, well, we are short of gas. So shortage of gas is the problem. And then the next thing you know, the entire grid system collapses. And then we are in a far worse place than we were even complaining about. So the question is, who isn't saying the truth? And who should be held accountable? Because that is one thing we miss as a very critical element in this country. People are not held accountable for the commitments they are signed. In other words, you make somebody a minister, a DG, an executive secretary. To what extent are they accountable? Do we have that, what they call stick and carrot approach to the way we provide leadership? All right, who gets punished within the ambit of the law when things go south? Who gets rewarded when they do the right thing, when the country benefits, when you put Nigeria on the map for the right reasons, when we find some advantage for ourselves in critical areas like health? All right, look at power, for example. Then let's talk about education. How about the financial sector or even agriculture, for example? People must be held accountable. It's not enough for us to have ministers and DGs and ESs who head ministries and agencies of government. The more important thing is that these people are responsible for way more than the title that they put on, the label and the badge that they wear. It should be about the work that they do for the country. How much has changed since you became minister, for example? I mean, Mr. Adelabu has been the Minister of Power now for upwards of 1 year. Where did he meet the power ministry? Where has it been taken to the last 1 year? Where will it be by the time he finally leaves office? These are the concerns that should agitate our minds and spur us into measurable action for the love of the country. But I think that love is really what is missing right now. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the headlines for you from the papers. The Punch has a few more headlines here. It says, NSAS anniversary protests, leaders demand implementation of panel reports. Again, that is long drawn out because we haven't forgotten in a hurry how about 4 years ago, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, who is, by the way, now Chief of Staff to the President, had made several commitments, including saying that whatever the executive was proposing to the National Assembly would not be signed by him, unless, of course, it's spelled out in a way that was very clear, all right, what the government would do about the welfare of police, about reforms in our policing systems, and what have you. But, well, the man left office a while ago, so I'm sure it's not possible to drag him back into all of these. But the question is, have those issues that were raised exactly 4 years ago been addressed? Just 2 days ago on Friday, news came through of how that some policemen had allegedly pursued a man to his death in a canal somewhere in Lagos. All right, so those were some of the issues that were being protested against in 2020. But obviously, we all know that we are not out of the woods yet in these very important areas of our national life. And then here it says, State House food budget grows by 20% in 3 years. Of course, they may not be eating more food at the State House now, but they are paying more for whatever they eat. That's what it means. So today, news says that the budget for food at the State House has grown by 20%. Okay, we have a picture of the FRSC boss here. It says, don't pass bill to arm FRSC, Nigerian Steel National Assembly. That debate has been here for a while, whether or not the FRSC, that is the Federal Road Safety Corps, should be armed. Well, those who say yes, they should be armed have also advanced their reasons. Others who conversely argue that they should not be armed have as well told us the reasons that shouldn't be. But whatever happens, the decision taken and the final analysis should serve the overall interest of Nigerians. I think that's what really counts, right? Meters calm, fuel attendants, drivers in battle of wheat. You need to see how some drivers buy fuel these days. The way they stand in front of the meter is almost like they are going to whip out the calculator to be sure that all T's are crossed and I's dotted. Because you can't be paying excess of 1,000 naira per liter for fuel, and you don't put your money where your mouth is. So naturally, like the Punch newspaper puts it this morning, there has to be some battle of wits. All right. What I learned in 50 years marriage to military officer, octogenarian. All right. I think there's a lesson for us all to learn from that. I mean, being married for 50 years obviously can't be a joke, because some of us are not even up to 50. So you can imagine somebody being in a union in marriage for 50 years. That's quite a thing, an achievement. All right. So congratulations to everyone who has clocked 50 in their marriage. But the star story on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning says Tinubu Shetima's frequent foreign trips raise eyebrows. Of course, that goes without saying. The writer tells us President, Vice President on 29th, 12th trips in 17 months. But the President is still leading by about 17 trips, because so far we understand that the President has done 29 trips, foreign trips, that is. And of course, the Vice has done 12 in 17 months. So if this trajectory is sustained, in other words, if this frequency of traveling continues, how many trips would President Tinubu and Vice President Shetima have done by the time this term of 4 years cycles out? All right, maybe we'll get data scientists to help us look at that. But let's drill down to the very bottom of it. Okay, presidents travel across the world, from the U.S. president to the Chancellor of Germany to the Prime Minister of Canada. They all travel, even the king, all right? The British king travels, King Charles. They all travel. But the question is, how critical, how crucial are these travels, all right? Whose interests do they serve? How much does it cost to do this travel? For example, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general election, Mr. Peter Obi, raised a very intellectual argument, one that also has a very strong economic element during the week, to say, look, President Bola Tinubu had left this country, from what we understand, based on the release by Bayo Onanuga, special advisor to the president on information and strategy, on the 1st of October, even though Bayo turned around later to say, well, it was actually on the 2nd. But whatever it is, he left Nigeria first week of October, bottom line. And then he jetted out to the United Kingdom on a 2-week vacation. Now, why people were saying, well, the president should not have left for England or even anywhere across, beyond Nigeria. There are places in Nigeria where he could have gone on vacation. Mr. Onanuga said, it's a 2-week vacation. It's his private time. He can spend it anywhere he likes. Totally true. We should agree to that. No sentiments, no emotions. However, the president, in the middle of that vacation, left the United Kingdom for Paris in France. Now, Mr. Peter Obi's argument is, why would you have your number 2 man, talking about Vice President Kashim Shettima, leave Abuja for Stockholm in Sweden, when you could have crossed over from, Paris, all right, to Stockholm, which will be cheaper and way faster. Of course, will save Nigeria a lot of money. Now, Obi's argument is very logical with facts, all right? Obi's argument is between Paris and Stockholm is about 833 nautical miles, 833 nautical miles. But between Nigeria, or say Abuja and Stockholm, it is over 3,000 nautical miles. It's commonsensical. All right, and then, of course, you're jetting out with your aides from Nigeria to go attend that summit. So this is beyond politics. This is beyond who is in the opposition, who is in the ruling party. It's about what serves the interest of Nigeria. The way our leaders live, the choices they make, the decisions they take must be reflective through and through of the economic reality of the country. I'm sure that's the argument every right-thinking Nigeria is pushing at this point in time. But let's move away from the trips by the president and his vice and talk about other things from the Punch newspaper this morning. Sight and sounds of Nigeria's first Islamic market on page 29. Read those details for yourself. I'm sure it will make a great read. Sights and sounds of Nigeria's first Islamic market. Where is it located? Well, that's why you need to read up the Punch newspaper on page 29 this morning. Pregnant women fear premature births over rising hunger. That's quite disturbing with so much humanitarian concern in this regard. Perpetrators beg parents not to withdraw students. Okay, proprietors beg parents not to withdraw students. You see, this is neither here nor there because it is the economic reality that will determine the choices that households will make because ultimately children and wards need to be alive to go to school. So first off, you've got to provide them food, provide them medicine, just in case you're sick, for example, before you think about sending them to school. And of course, what kind of school you would send them to. So if proprietors are begging, it's understandable, it's fine. However, the real issue is not whether you beg or not. It's about whether the parents can afford to pay this tuition and make other vital supplies available to these children. Because it's also going to come to a point where parents will start writing notes to their schools to say, look, you have to give us 2-week extension, give us 1 month extension to pay up, and things like that. Are we ready to be in that kind of position? I think those are the concerns we should be having at this point. But we have other papers that we need to look at for you this morning. At this point, let's turn away now and take a look at the Sunday Telegraph, all right? That's our next port of call, the Sunday Telegraph. We begin with the big story on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Says Egbetokun's new tenure. 183 DIGs, AIGs, CPs face uncertain future, and as according to investigation, as they may attain 60 years or 35 years of service before 2027. SAN's amended law only secures IGP. So the IGP is the only one wearing raincoats in this rain, so to speak. The others, we're not so sure, because here it says that before 2027, some of these DIGs, AIGs, and CPs would have attained either, hit 60 years of age or attained the mandatory 35 years in service, whichever one comes first, all right? So ultimately, they are not guaranteed stay in office beyond or even up till 2027, aside the IGP. That's according to senior lawyers now. All right, but let's take it a notch higher and look at some headlines for you from the New Telegraph this morning. That's the Sunday Telegraph. Tinubu returns after a 2-week break. Yes, the president is back. Jetted back in yesterday. For those of you who've missed him, who have been asking why is the president not around, he should be in the country at this very crucial time in our history. Yes, the president is back now. So now what? All right, so that's that for the president's return. Then we move on to another headline. 2027 presidency, I'll speak at right time. Makinde, that's your state governor, says I'm old enough to push my agenda. All right, 2027 is going to be interesting. Our president, Bola Tinubu, is from the West. Makinde also is from the West as well. All right, so the fight is going to be rife. Whether or not we are going to be talking zoning and region and religion or not, we're not so sure just yet. But we see many people already indicating interest in running for president come 2027. But how many persons would actually churn out to throw their hearts in the ring at that point in time remains to be seen. LG autonomy, LCDAs will die natural death, says lawyers. Insist says creation can't benefit from allocations. We'll deal with 20 listed LGs only, that's Lagos. Katsina, Osun, Zamfara schedule elections for 2025. LG poll, late arrival of materials, apathy, exercise in Kaduna as APC wins all. Late arrival of materials, apathy, exercise in Kaduna as APC wins all. Okay, of course, we understand there was election day yesterday. 3 riders accompany that big headline. PDP kicks Governor Sani hails process, as always. Masked men disrupt LP's meeting in Aba. Kogi holds peaceful process. That's quite consoling, coming from Kogi State. Yes. We know Nigerians are hungry, says Senator Kalu. All right. Well, that goes without saying. But let's turn to the Sunday Tribune. We'll start with the big story that has a picture of President Bola Tinubu this morning. Tinubunomics, that's the kicker for you. Tinubunomics is the kicker. All right. More pains for businesses. 3 riders with the story there. We are at crossroads. Small business owners lament. Make local products competitive. That's Manufacturers Association of Nigeria there. A lack of electricity killing businesses in Nigeria. Akiwumi Additional, the president of African Development Bank, a man who also spoke at the event in Abuja recently, just this last weekend, the one that focused on business, all right, and economy, and talking about how that Nigerian youths do not have their future in Canada, UK, or the US. Said their future is in Nigeria and African future is in Africa. So hopefully we find the environment to have that conversation, because it goes beyond just delivering the talk. All right. What's more, Governor suspends commissioner over alleged affair with married woman. That actually happened in Jigawa State. You understand Governor Namadi has suspended the gentleman who is alleged to have been arrested by the Hisba authority in Kano State for allegedly having an affair with a married woman who has 2 children. All right. What else? He has also been accused of running brothels in Kano. So by way of ensuring that the administration and government in Jigawa State are isolated from all of these embarrassments, he has been suspended, and the government says the investigation is ongoing to ensure that it unravel the issues around this very disturbing development. Meanwhile, the accused man himself has said that he's going to court because he has been falsely accused. But we wait to see how all of this will turn out. Then here it says, State of the Nation. Church can't afford to be silent. Adeleke can CNS insists. Nigerians groan as national grid collapses 3rd time in 5 days. We talked about that a while ago. Restored hours later. Yes, we can see light, at least in some parts of the Federal Capital Territory now. 2027, nobody can push presidential agenda for me. Makinde here talking. Okay, the man says he's grown enough to push it for himself, so let's allow him do that. He's not asking for too much, by the way. All right, but let's take a look at the Sunday Independent as well. It has a lot of headlines. We're going to take a break after this, and then we'll bring you the rest of the papers afterwards. But let's begin from the stories above the nameplates, all right? Here it says, End Bad Governance Movement declares today Memorial Day for martyrs. End Bad Governance Movement declares today Memorial Day for martyrs. You can find those details on page 7 of the Sunday Independent. Ododo is transforming governance to enhance welfare of Kogi people. Commissioner, that's talking about Kogi State's governor. PDP kicks as Kaduna Electoral Commission declares APC winner of 23 Kaduna LGs. We understand while the PDP and other opposition parties are kicking and raising dust, the APC and indeed Governor Ubasani are celebrating this landslide sweeping victory. All right, let's look at the big story here. Rankled by paucity of funds, Nigerian universities seek a lifeline. TED Fund advocates consultancy, agribusiness, other efforts for sustenance. I think the instructive thing here is that this advice is coming from TED Fund. So TED Fund is telling these universities, while we understand that you're rattled and rankled by these financial challenge at this point, all right? Yes, seek lifeline. However, turn to things like consultancy. Of course, Nigerian universities have been doing consultancy, as far as I know, since the 90s, all right? Maybe all they have to do now for most of them is to scale, all right? Expand it in such a way that you're able to give more value, open up the space, make more money, because this is about money ultimately, no two ways about it, all right? Another thing TED Fund has said to them is turn to agriculture, all right? All the universities in this country have departments or faculty of agriculture. So turn to agriculture and see what you can do in that area, because in every problem, there is a solution. But the question is, who is going to dig out that solution? That's where these universities will have to put on their thinking cap, all right? Then we have a headline here that says, stakeholders worried over frequent national grid collapse. Of course, we all are. Two writers with the story, link power sector crisis to failure of privatization. Finger cartels, corrupt officials, seek probe. Well, will the probe ever end? PDP crisis, restore party supremacy, cohesion, analysts tell leaders. Say big wigs involved in anti-party activities be shown the door. All right. Why aren't some people suspended in the party? There must be leadership, and those who lead must lead by example. That's what the problem is. You can't have it both ways. All right. You must lead and show the example, show that it's possible, show that it can be done. It's not just by giving directives, show that it can be done. All right. You can have some people suspended in one party where they have done far less, committed far less infraction than others who are living like they're above the law. So if PDP wants to be serious about its business, it should begin internally before it comes out to criticize the ruling party, because as it stands right now, there's probably no political party in Nigeria more divided, more disturbed, more embattled than the People's Democratic Party. So it must begin to take a second look at its own leadership. So the questions around what happened to the PDP of 1999 to 2014 should be asked, all right? At what point did the party miss it? How did it get to where it is today? Of course, no political party in the world is perfect, but why would the PDP become a bad example of this kind? I mean, recurrent decimal. So the leaders of the party must ask questions. Dina Melaye came out the other time and said that the party is dead. Later, he came out and said the party is buried. However, he created a caveat saying that the party may leave if the right thing is done, if it takes a second look at its leadership and decide to wield out those people who are creating problems in the party. But how do you do that in a country where individuals practically own parties? They call the shots. There's no such thing in practical sense as party supremacy. So what you call party supremacy is only in principle, is not in practice for the most part. So I think that's the issue that these leaders of this party must have to address going forward. Let's take a look at just one more headline from the Sunday Independent. That's at the foot of the front page. Economy, Afenifere calls for caution over World Bank prescriptions. World Bank has been the medical doctor of many third world nations for a long time. And now, more than ever before, concerns are being raised about whether or not Nigeria should begin or continue, because we have always been here, should continue to swallow the recommendations of the World Bank and the IMF, hook, line, and sinker. Recall that on the day that Dr. Olayemi Cardoso, the current CBN governor, was being screened by the Senate, one of the things that Edo North Senator Adams Oshomole did say was that President Bola Tinubu must tread carefully with the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Banks and the IMFs, if Nigeria must get it right in terms of fiscal policy and monetary policy. I'm sure that advice is still as timely today, still as vital today as it was on the day that Mr. Cardoso was screened. All right, let's take a quick break, everyone. We have two more papers to look at for you when we return. Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. Thank you for staying with us, everyone. Let's return to the papers now. Now, we're looking at the Matrix newspaper for you. Above the nameplate here, it says, Sun advises public against uncertified CNG gas cylinders. That is the Standards Organization of Nigeria is advising citizens against the use of uncertified CNG gas cylinders. In the week that was, we did see very nasty incidences of explosion with regards to CNG. We're told that most of those were not properly done. They had been done by those who had not been commissioned to do so. Now, that is another layer to the challenges that we have to deal with, because while we're hearing that the cost of CNG is just about 1/5 of what it requires or what is required to buy fuel. In other words, you only have to spend just about 20% buying CNG as is required to get fuel. We also need to now deal with issues around standards and compliance. All right. So how do we ensure that those who are doing conversion from PMS to CNG have been trained, are certified, have the right tools and facility to do that? So there's going to be a lot of work to do in terms of M&E, monitoring and evaluation, all right, and ensuring that the right thing is done. Again, like I said a while ago, there has to be some sort of stick and carrots approach to these things, all right? People must be held accountable. You don't give people responsibility without holding them accountable. And those who are to hold them accountable must also lead by example, all right? So to whom much is given, much is required is a principle, all right? What's more, big one here says Nigeria's energy poverty, a growing concern for the nation's economy. We have 4 riders with this story. Lack of electricity killing Nigerian industries, GDP additional again. That's the president of the African Development Bank talking. Says AFDB invested $210 million to strengthen Nigeria grid. NERC reveals real reasons for recent grid collapse. FG to hand over national grids to independent operators. Sounds brilliant. However, will that solve the problem? Because we must be focused about solving problems, not just talking about them. Yes, talk about them as quickly as possible, but the goal must be to find a solution, not just for the sake of talking about them. We have talked about problems for too long. Let's find practical solutions. That's how countries grow. That's how families do better. That's how organizations succeed. So let's find solutions to these incessant collapse of our grid, okay? While I donated 200 million naira for education within 1 week, Obi. Why I donated 200 million naira for education within 1 week, Obi. Makinde denies presidential ambition, warns against one-party states in Nigeria. NNPC sensitizes over 1,000 auto mechanics to CNG conversion. That sounds great. We hope it's sustained. All right. Electoral victory. Wike Atiku in war of words. Nigerians have rejected you. Wike slams Atiku. I will not descend into gutters. Atiku. APC sweeps LG polls in Kaduna and Kogi. Well, I'm sure many people will say that's what we expected it to be in the first instance. All right, let's look at the last paper for you today, and this happens to be the Sunday Times. All right, let's start with the one above, just beneath, immediately beneath the nameplate. It says, missed grill after authorities relax admission age policy amid legal action by PPO. Missed grill after authorities relax admission age policy amid legal action by PPO. Remember the 15-year-old boy from last week whom we were told had resolved to sue the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, and indeed the Ministry of Education, all right, on the issue of the policy regarding 18-year benchmark, so to say, for admission. into university. As a matter of fact, the minister just about a month ago had said, you can't write the West African examination cancel test, for example, until you are 18. But we saw how the parents and Nigerians across board came against that policy. But now we're hearing that the authorities are beginning to consider relaxing it, because it doesn't look like it is one of the very important things that the education sector needs at this point in time. There are many other issues that the sector needs to address. That's one issue, again, we need to deal with in this country. We major on the minor and minor on the major. We have big issues to deal with. Let's not be playing around with petty things, all right? There are bigger issues. Let's talk about funding for the sector. All right, let's talk about compliance with the already existing standard. This sector already has a policy. On the scale of 10, to what extent have we been able to drive that policy? Those are the issues that should bother us all day, every day, not the issue of 18 years. So what if you have a super brilliant child at 15, 16? Are we saying we put them on hold until they are 18? Or we say, okay, go learn a skill first? All right, that's going to create more problems than we're trying to solve. And it's the reason people say we often take 2 steps forward and we take 6 backward. And we must find a way to do some sort of revised engineering, as they call it in this case, all right? But then let's look at a few more headlines for you from the Sunday Sun Times this morning, okay? Again, it says, poor electricity supply, that's a kicker. Stakeholders demand sack of grid managers over recent collapse. Here, the writer says, additional bemoans impact on the economy worsening on employment. Of course, that again is a no-brainer. All right. What more do we have? Systems upgrade in banks leaves Nigerians stranded as transactions falter. There are people I know who now have to wait till between 12, that's midnight, and 3 a.m. to do transactions. Can you imagine how traumatic that can be? You've had a long day working your fingers out. You can't do transactions. You now have to maybe set a reminder or some sort of alarm just to kick you up from sleep between midnight and 3 a.m. so you can do transactions, all right? It's as interesting as that. Somebody will tell you, for example, on a Saturday, even on a Friday evening, I'm sorry, I'm not so sure I can do this transaction until Monday. People have had to hit their banks, like physical branches of their bank, just to find solution to these problems. Some persons were paid salaries in some organizations before the end of September. Up until today, they still can't access their money. That's how embarrassing and very uninspiring it has been in recent times. But how do we solve all of these problems? Because the banks would always have cause to upgrade their platforms, upgrade their systems. How do we ensure that it doesn't become a case of trying to solve a problem and then complicating it further? I think that's where we are right now as a country, all right? Let's turn to the South now, where it says, outrage in Bayelsa as police apprehends personnel accused of raping girl inside supermarkets, all right? That's quite a sad story there, but it's good that the police too have now arrested the person, and we're told that this person is allegedly a policeman, and let's see what the investigation will be like. Let's see what the prosecution will be like, because all of these are very concerning issues that we have to address in society. And again, it comes down to one thing, the fact that people must be held accountable. As a policeman, you have a lot of work to do. You have a responsibility of protecting lives, ensuring there's no breach of the peace, public peace as we call it, and then of course you maintain law and order. But when you now become the person who is creating chaos, who is flouting your own rules of engagement, that means we have more problems on our hands than we readily realize. Okay. How to start a decluttering business from used home items. That's again an article on today's the Sunday Times, and I hope you find a way to read it out for yourself, just to find details. Governor suspends commissioner over alleged illicit affair with married woman. Governor suspends commissioner over alleged illicit affair with a married woman. That is a story that is replicated across many dailies, at least major dailies today. Of course, like we said earlier, that story actually came from Jigawa State. But we understand investigations are on. The man in question, a commissioner of special duties in Jigawa State, who has now been suspended, will be arraigned in court tomorrow by the Hisbah authorities in Kano. So hopefully we'll see how it turns out, and Global Television will keep you posted along those lines. Let's take our last break on the program. We'll return shortly to close it for you. Do stay with us. All right, it's a great Sunday, no doubt about that, but it's also the first day of the week. Yes, it may not be a working day officially, but it marks the beginning of a new week, which means that on an individual level, we have a responsibility to look at how we spent our time and our energy, of course, our money, no matter how limited it was that you had in the course of the last week, and look at how much that has changed your goals one way or another. That's on the individual level. As a country, we must also now ask ourselves, all of the decisions that this government has made since the 29th of May 2023, beginning from the announcement of suspension of subsidy payments to the new policy framework that we've seen lately about the economy and what have you, how much have they changed our lives? How much will they change our lives? Are they just promises that are made on the basis of, well, let's pacify Nigerians? Or is there some concrete sincerity or purpose behind these promises, with a lot of work being put in across board to ensure that Nigeria leaves these woods where it is currently trapped? The Social Democratic Party presidential candidate in the 2023 general election, Prince Adebayo, granted an interview just this last weekend, where one of the things he did raise is the fact that the economy is not only in a bad place, it is such that we make it look as if there are no alternatives. This is where Nigeria must be, and we don't have a choice. Now, the World Bank is telling Nigeria, you should not reverse the present range of policies that you have rolled out, because if you do, Nigeria will return to a far worse place than it is coming from. But people like Prince Adebayo, who are not just only long-standing constitutional lawyers, but those who also understand how economies around the world work, are now arguing to say that in economics, elementary economics for that matter, there are always alternatives. However, he says, from his own assessment, the only thing this government is not doing right now is thinking about what those alternatives should be. Just to put an icing on the cake this morning before we leave this scene for you, the government is now proposing a 5% tax on, well, it calls it excise of 5%, all right, on telecoms and digital services, which means that if this bill, which is an executive bill, by the way, goes through the legislature and then is passed and assented to by the president, you would have to pay 5% duty on every digital service that you use, whether you're buying top-up to make calls or you're buying data to browse the internet. Or for those who are into betting and lottery and what have you, they will have to pay that 5%. Now, the government is doing this to fight off some sort of pressure that is coming through the fiscal framework of this country. Again, the government is also doing that to ensure that we gradually move away from total dependency on money that comes from the sale of crude. But how would Nigerians react to these developments remains to be seen. Again, that will be a big thrust of our conversation on Global Morning tomorrow with yours sincerely and Queen Agaba. I'm Uyi Agumofugbe. Thank you so very much for watching today. We'll see you again. Good morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled as a strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.